Click, buy, and the product appears on your doorstep. Modern consumers expect instantaneous availability, but that frictionless experience does not happen by accident. It is a highly engineered, meticulously maintained illusion. Behind the Buy Now button lies a strict, cold, mathematical framework. Supply chain professionals use this framework to quantify exactly how reliable their logistics networks actually are. The definitive metric for this reliability is called the customer service level, or CSL. This document outlines the exact parameters used across the industry. Look at the first line. CSL measures either the probability of an event or the percentage of a volume. That distinction dictates whether you are grading the likelihood of avoiding an empty shelf or measuring the sheer volume of goods you successfully pushed out the door. The second half of the definition introduces the operational constraints. You must satisfy demand from your available inventory or supply chain capability, and you must do it without delay or stockout. A late delivery is a failure. An empty shelf is a failure. Global enterprises track this metric because it determines how they allocate capital and resources across their distribution networks. At the highest strategic level, the goal is straightforward. You track service level to ensure customer satisfaction and to actively prevent lost sales when a buyer walks in to find an empty shelf. But internally, it serves a much more ruthless purpose. Logistics teams use this metric to balance the massive cost of holding physical inventory against the quality of the customer experience. Tracking this number feeds directly into macro-level supply chain planning. It determines where companies build warehouses, how many trucks they lease, and how they allocate capital. CSL provides the hard, quantifiable data necessary to connect internal logistics performance directly to external market viability. Reliability is not a universal standard. The target morphs entirely depending on the operational environment and the specific product being sold. Consider a high-volume, low-margin environment. If a retail supermarket keeps its shelves stocked with milk and fulfills 98 out of 100 customer requests immediately, that represents a 98% service level. To maintain that 98% mark, the store must rely on a localized inventory buffer strategy. They must keep physical cartons sitting cold on the shelf, waiting for a buyer to arrive. Contrast the retail model with e-commerce fulfillment. If customers order laptops online and they are delivered on time 95% of the time, the operation achieves a 95% service level. E-commerce relies far less on having the laptop available on a shelf in your specific town, and far more on the predictable speed of transit times and the distribution network. Now shift to a high-stakes business-to-business environment. An automotive supplier delivering parts to an active assembly line might require a staggering 99.5% service level. A missed delivery in auto manufacturing is vastly more destructive than a grocery store running out of milk. A single late shipment forces a multi-million-dollar assembly line to stop completely. The extreme financial penalty justifies the extreme target. What qualifies as an acceptable service level is entirely dictated by the financial cost of failure within that specific industry's context. Because operational contexts vary so wildly, supply chain professionals rarely use the umbrella term service level on its own. They must specify exactly how the performance is being measured. The very first specific metric is the cycle service level. A replenishment cycle is the time interval between inventory deliveries. The cycle service level strictly calculates the probability that an operation will survive that specific window of time without experiencing a single stockout. A completely different mathematical approach is a volume-based metric called fill rate. Look at the formula. If demand is 1,000 units and 970 are delivered immediately, your fill rate is 97%. Rather than grading the probability of a stockout event, fill rate cares about the percentage of total demand that you are able to fulfill immediately from your existing stock. We can apply a much stricter variation of this logic, known as the order fill rate. Here, we measure the percentage of entire customer orders that ship completely on the first try.
The operational rigor here is absolute. If an order contains 10 distinct items and your warehouse only has 9 in stock, the entire order fails the metric. The final primary metric steps away from inventory volume and focuses on the clock, on-time delivery. On-time delivery separates itself from fill rate by ignoring the warehouse shelves entirely. It asks one time-based question: did the shipment arrive on or before the promised date? A company could theoretically achieve a perfect 100% fill rate at their internal loading dock, but suffer a terrible on-time delivery rate because the logistics network failed in transit. If management applies the wrong mathematical structure to their operation, the resulting data will completely blind them to where their fulfillment failures are actually occurring. Once an operation determines how to measure its performance, it has to decide what baseline target to aim for in the real world. We can map these baseline operating zones across major global sectors. At the lowest tier, retail systems are designed to operate comfortably in the 90 to 97% zone. The cost of a consumer temporarily missing a specific brand of cereal does not justify the expense of a flawless inventory buffer. The middle tier tightens up. Consumer electronics require a 95 to 98% performance window. The items carry higher price tags and face stricter customer expectations, forcing brands to invest more heavily in availability. Contrast consumer goods with the extreme upper tier. Automotive manufacturing and industrial spare parts demand 99 to 99.9% reliability. Increasing a service target demands fundamental physical changes to the supply chain architecture. Achieving a 99.9% service level demands an entirely different structural DNA. You either build massive inventory buffers or you pay for highly expensive expedited logistics networks. This brings us to the central governing principle of supply chain management, the inherent, unavoidable conflict between service and cost. The progression seems linear at first. Achieving a 90% service level requires a relatively low inventory investment. Bumping that target up to 95% requires a moderate, manageable increase in holding costs. But here is the mathematical trap. The final jump to 99% does not demand a moderate increase. It demands a disproportionate amount of capital. This is a chart showing the nonlinear relationship between availability and investment. The x-axis tracks the service level percentage, and the y-axis shows the required inventory. Notice the gentle slope at the beginning. As the line crosses the 95% mark, it curves violently upward into an exponential spike. The mechanics of this spike are tied to risk. Covering those last few percentage points means buffering against extreme, rare demand anomalies or severe supplier delays. The physical reality of this mathematical curve means warehousing millions of dollars of stock that might sit untouched for years, paying rent and losing value, just to catch a 1% anomaly. In supply chain design, blind maximization is financially ruinous. The true objective is strategic optimization. This addresses the most dangerous misconception held by junior professionals, the belief that a 100% service level is the ultimate objective. Designing a system that guarantees it will never fail requires a theoretically infinite amount of inventory. Chasing perfect availability will bankrupt the company. The second major misconception is conflating the service level metric directly with customer satisfaction. A company can successfully hit a 99% on-time delivery metric, entirely satisfying the math. But if the goods arrive damaged or with poor support, the customer experience still fails. So, how is this calculated, optimized, purposefully imperfect number actually deployed in real-world business planning? It operates as the foundational input. It drives mathematical safety stock calculations on the warehouse floor, and it dictates the final design footprint of massive distribution networks. And externally, it functions as the binding contractual backbone in service-level agreements negotiated with major corporate clients. The CSL framework identifies the mathematical intersection where a company secures customer loyalty while protecting